Wind hit the porch before sunrise, not a breeze. A hard desert shove that rattled the loose shutter like someone testing the door. Caleb Thorne was already awake. He had been awake most of the night. He stood in the doorway of the farmhouse, coffee tin warm in his palm, staring at the empty stretch of high desert that belonged to him on paper and no one else in truth. Something had changed. The yard felt watched. If you have ever stood on land that does not trust you yet, you know the feeling. Behind him, 6-year-old Sarah slept on a pallet near the hearth, her small boots still on. He had not taken them off. He wanted her ready. 3 weeks earlier, he had bought this farm for less than a horse saddle. The town clerk had leaned over the counter and whispered about blood in the floorboards and a family wiped out in a raid. Caleb had signed anyway. He did not believe in curses. He believed in distance. Distance from debt collectors, distance from pity, distance from the memory of Mary coughing through the night while he stood useless at the foot of the bed. He took a slow breath. The barn door creaked, not wind, a deliberate shift. Caleb set the tin down without a sound. He stepped off the porch and crossed the yard, boots sinking slightly in the powdery dirt. The air smelled of sage and old smoke. He pushed the barn door open with his shoulder. Darkness swallowed him for a moment, then his eyes adjusted. The horses stood still, too still. He saw it in the corner, a small pile of food placed neatly on an overturned crate, 2 potatoes, a strip of dried beef, a heel of bread he had not cut, not scattered, arranged. Caleb felt the back of his neck tighten. "Come out," he said quietly. No answer. He stepped forward. Then they rose from behind the hay like figures pulled from the earth. 2 women, thin, dust-covered, buckskin dresses stitched and restitched a dozen times. The older one held a knife low at her side. The younger leaned against a post, weight off one leg. Her breathing was shallow, fever bright in her eyes. Caleb did not raise his rifle. He looked at them, really looked, hollows beneath cheekbones, hands tight from hunger. The older woman's stare did not waver. "Go," she said in broken English. "We go." The younger tried to step forward, her leg buckled. She dropped hard into the straw with a sharp gasp she could not swallow. The knife came up fast. Not wild, protective. Caleb's jaw tightened. "If you go out there," he said evenly, "she won't make it 2 miles. The older woman's nostrils flared. Silence pressed in from the house. A small voice carried, "Papa." Sarah stood in the barn doorway, clutching her rag doll. She looked at the women, then smiled. "It's the lady," she said softly. "The one who fixed my doll." Caleb felt the air leave his lungs. The older woman's eyes flicked to Sarah, the knife lowered half an inch, not surrender. Consideration. Caleb eased the hammer down on his rifle. "You can stay," he said. The words tasted like crossing a river he could not recross. "You stay in the barn. You work when she stands. You don't touch my daughter unless I say." The woman studied him as if measuring bone. "I am Nyla," she said at last. She touched the younger one's shoulder. "Tia." Caleb nodded once. "Caleb." He looked toward the open horizon. "If soldiers ride through, you vanish. If they find you here, they hang us all." Nyla's jaw tightened. She understood that word. Hang. That night wind howled against the house. Caleb lay on his pallet, revolver in hand. Above him, faint movement shifted in the rafters, not rats breathing. He closed his eyes but did not sleep. Before dawn, Sarah padded across the floor and pressed against his side. "Are they staying?" she whispered. "For a little while," he answered. Outside, first light spilled across the dry land. In the barn, Nyla wrapped fresh cloth around Tia's leg using strips torn from her own sleeve. Her fingers were steady, her eyes were not. Far to the east, a faint dust line lifted against the horizon. Not wind this time, riders. Caleb stepped onto the porch again. He felt it settle inside him. This farm was no longer empty. It held breath, it held danger. And whatever came over that ridge would not find him alone. The riders did not slow, 6 of them, blue coats dulled by dust. Caleb stood in the yard, rifle resting against his thigh, breath slow. Behind him, the barn door was shut tight. Inside, no sound. He did not look back. The lieutenant drew his horse up at the broken fence. "You Thorne?" "Yes." The man scanned the house, the well, the repaired fence posts. "Seen any Apache?" Caleb's jaw worked once. "Just wind and bad soil." One soldier rode toward the barn. Caleb shifted his weight, slow. "Not threatening. Stock's nervous," Caleb said. "Door sticks." The soldier dismounted anyway. Boots crunching. He pulled the barn door open halfway. Darkness, hay, horses, no movement. Because Nyla and Tia were not there. They were beneath the kitchen floor, pressed into the root cellar with dirt on their lips and breath held tight. Caleb had moved them before dawn when he saw the dust line rise. He had lifted the rug, pulled the trap door open. "Not a sound," he had whispered. Now he stood in the yard while the soldier kicked at loose boards and spat. The lieutenant's eyes narrowed. "Fresh tracks near your well," he said. My girl runs barefoot, Caleb answered. Sarah stood on the porch, doll in hand, watching. The lieutenant studied her, then looked back at Caleb. If you see hostiles, you ride to the fort. You don't shelter them, Caleb's mouth tightened. I don't shelter anyone. The lieutenant held his stare a moment longer, then nodded once. Mount up. They rode off in a curtain of dust. Caleb did not move until they were specks. Then he exhaled hard. Inside the house, he dropped the table leg off the rug and pulled open the trap door. Nyla climbed out first. Her face was pale, but her spine straight. Tia followed slower, sweat running down her temples. They will come again, Nyla said quietly. Yes, Caleb answered, and next time maybe not 6. Days settled into a strange rhythm. Work at sunrise, silence when riders appeared, hide when dust lifted. Nyla moved through the fence lines like she had grown from the earth. She wove barbed wire with steady hands. She dug post holes in rock without wasting strength. Tia mended harness straps near the well, jaw set tight against pain. Caleb watched them when he thought they did not see. They did not waste food. They did not waste motion. They did not complain. One evening, Sarah carried her doll to Nyla. Can you fix her arm again? The seam had torn. Nyla knelt, threaded twine through cloth. Her hands slowed, gentle. Sarah leaned close. Why do you hide? She asked plainly. Nyla paused. Her eyes flicked toward Caleb. Some men hunt what they fear, she said softly. Sarah frowned. I'm not afraid. Nyla gave the doll back. You are small, she said. You are brave later. Caleb turned away before Nyla could see his face. The well rope snapped 2 days later. The bucket plunged into darkness. Caleb cursed under his breath. Water mattered more than pride. Nyla brought rawhide strips she had cured from a steer hide. She braided them tight, fingers moving with sure rhythm. Caleb tried to copy. His braid sagged uneven. Nyla took his hands, pulled the leather tighter. Hard, she said. Pull hard. Her palm stayed against his a moment too long. Neither spoke. They raised the bucket together. Clear water dripped in the sun. That night, wind screamed through the shutters. Sarah slept. Tia lay in the loft. Caleb sat at the table cleaning his revolver. Nyla watched the fire. Why? She asked suddenly. He did not look up. Why what? Why you risk rope for us? He set the revolver cylinder down carefully. My wife died because no one thought she was worth saving, he said evenly. Nyla did not move. I won't stand and watch another person be measured and discarded. The fire popped. Nyla's throat worked once. Soldiers come to tent night, she said flatly. They take women. They laugh. Her hands trembled once, then steadied. I will not go back, she added. Caleb met her eyes. You won't silence held, not empty, charge, then hoofbeats shattered it. Not from the road, from the south pasture. Caleb rose fast. He stepped outside. A single rider cut across his field, not cavalry, not neighbor either, lean, watchful. The man drew up near the gate. Name's Ezra Pike, he called out. Looking for work, Caleb studied him. Pike's gaze drifted past him toward the house, toward the barn, toward the laundry line where a woman's shirt hung drying. You live here alone? Pike asked lightly. Me and my girl, Caleb replied. Pike's mouth twitched. Big place for two. The wind lifted dust between them. Behind the house wall, unseen, Nyla watched through a narrow crack. Her hand rested on the knife at her belt. Pike spat into the dirt. I can fix fence, he said. No cattle, cheap. Caleb's jaw tightened. He needed help. The south fence sagged. Cornshoot struggled, but Pike's eyes moved too much, like a buzzard circling something not yet dead. You sleep in the tack room, Caleb said at last. You stay out of my house. Pike smiled without warmth. Sure thing. As the sun dropped, Pike walked the yard slowly. He touched fence posts, counted water buckets, studied footprints near the well. That night, long after he lay down in the tack room, Caleb heard soft steps outside the barn. Not horses, not wind. Nyla stepped from shadow. Wolf, she whispered. Yes, Caleb answered. And in the darkness beyond the fence, something watched back. The scream split the canyon. Not wind. Not an animal, human. Caleb dropped the hammer he was using on the south fence and ran. He knew that sound. Tia. The creek bend lay half a mile north, screened by cottonwoods. He reached the brush and saw them. Tia stood waist deep in the water, arms crossed over her chest. Ezra Pike stood on the bank, hat tipped back, grin wide. Found what you were hiding, Thorne, Pike called. He stepped into the water. Tia tried to move. Her injured leg slid on stone. Pike grabbed her wrist. She fought, clawed, kicked. He laughed. Then the brush exploded. Nyla came out low and fast. She hit Pike hard enough to drive him sideways into the mud. The knife flashed, not wild, clean. It cut from ear to mouth. Pike howled and staggered back, blood pouring down his neck. You savage, go, Nyla said through her teeth. Or next cut deeper. Pike stumbled away, clutching his face. I'll bring the sheriff, he shouted. You're dead. Silence returned. Water lapped against rock. Tia stood shaking. Nyla held her close. Caleb felt something shift inside his chest. Not doubt, decision. By dusk, Pike had reached town. By nightfall, torches burned. Caleb saw the dust before sunrise. Too many riders for a visit. "Cellar," he ordered. Nyla shook her head. No hiding now. They did not have time. The riders flooded the yard, Sheriff Brady at the front. Pike's beside him, face wrapped in dirty cloth, eyes burning. "That's him," Pike shouted. Harboring hostiles, Brady looked tired. "Caleb," he called. "Step forward." Caleb walked into the yard, rifle in hand but lowered. "She cut me," Pike yelled. "Tried to kill me. You tried to force her," Caleb answered. Murmurs rippled through the men. Pike lunged toward the barn with a torch. Caleb moved first. He fired at Pike's horse. The animal dropped. Gunshots erupted. Mud kicked around Caleb's boots. A bullet tore through his shoulder. He fell hard. Men piled on him. Rope bit into his wrists. Smoke poured from the barn roof. "Run," he shouted toward the house. Nyla burst from the back door. Tia and Sarah with her. They sprinted toward the creek. Shots cracked after them. Pike dragged himself upright, pistol shaking in his hand. "I'll hunt them," he hissed at Caleb. Caleb looked up through blood and dust. "If you touch them," he said quietly, "I'll follow you to hell." They hauled him to town. By night he lay in a jail cell, iron cold against his skin. Voices gathered outside, rope talk. Angry talk. He closed his eyes. Then he heard it. 3 low whistles. He moved to the window. A shadow stepped forward. "Nyla." "You're mad," he whispered. "We take Snake," she answered. The street erupted moments later. Tia walked straight down the center of Red Rock, unarmed. Head high. Men poured from the saloon. Pike shoved through them. "There she is." Nyla stepped beside her sister. "He attacked her," Nyla shouted. "Ask him why he bled." Doubt flickered across faces. Pike saw it. He drew his revolver. "Die," he spat. The shot cracked. Tia shoved Nyla aside. The bullet struck her chest. She dropped. The crowd froze. Pike raised his gun again. Caleb burst from the jail doorway. Deputy's revolver clutched in bound hands. He fired once. Pike staggered, fell, did not rise. Silence swallowed the street. Nyla knelt in the dirt, holding Tia. Blood soaked her hands. Tia's eyes found Caleb. "I'm not coward," she whispered. "No," Caleb said, kneeling beside her. "Never." Her fingers slackened. The sheriff stepped forward. "He drew first," Brady said hoarsely. "I saw it." Men lowered their guns. Too late. The doctor worked in the sheriff's office for an hour. Tia lived, barely. Brady shut the door behind him. "You can't stay," he said. "Army won't care who drew first." Caleb nodded. That night they left. A mule, a buckboard. Bandaged shoulder, bandaged chest. They passed the farm in moonlight. Barn ashes still smoking. Caleb did not stop. 3 weeks later they climbed into a canyon hidden by red stone walls. Smoke rose from small shelters. Nyla's people stepped from shadow. No cheers. Only quiet recognition. They built a cabin against rock, half log, half earth. Sarah learned new words. Caleb learned silence. Tia healed slow, scar white against brown skin. One evening, as sun burned gold across the ridge, Caleb stood beside Nyla above the valley. Wind lifted her hair. "You could have left," he said. Nyla looked at him. "You could have shot," she replied. They did neither. Below them, Sarah chased a lizard. Tia laughed near the fire. No fences, no town, no rope, only rock and sky and breath. Caleb reached for Nyla's hand. This time she did not pull away. Far beyond the canyon walls, riders still patrolled dusty roads. But they would not find this valley easily, and if they did, they would not find Caleb alone.